Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about the filter page. Now, the filter page is where you want to start your sound sculpting. Once you load up a sample, this is probably going to be your first stop to make it sound unique and make it sound your own. If you're new to synths, envelopes might be a little bit of a foreign concept, so I hope that I can explain how envelopes work and also show how to use them on the Digitakt. And to do this, I think the best way to do it is to load up a simple saw wave from our samples and we'll sculpt the bass sound. So I'm going to go back to the source page and I have loaded up Acid Saw. I brought this up in the last video when I was talking about the samples. Notice how right now we can't hear anything except for some clicks when we press it. And that's because this is just one wave in one saw wave that is going extremely fast. So the only way we're going to be able to hear it is if we have it looping. So I'm going to set this to forward loop. And now we have our saw wave. Now, right now it's kind of boring, but we're going to turn this into just a really awesome bass sound. So the first thing I'm going to do just for demonstration purposes is turn down my decay on the amp. I'll get more into what the amp does later, but basically this means that whenever I let go of this button, it's going to just stop. So basically what a filter does is filter out harmonics from a sound. So there's all kinds of different types. Let's start there. The first one is one of the most common, and that's called a low pass filter. And as you can see in the diagram right here, there's an LP. And if you notice, the top or the right-hand side curves all the way down. That means anything above that little knee point, that curve point, is going to be taken out of the sound. And we could lower the frequency by turning data entry knob E. So you can hear now if I turn it down to about 50, you're only hearing the low parts of that sound. That's called a low pass filter because it's letting the low end pass through. There's some other types in here. There's a high pass filter, which will filter out the bottom end of the sound. This is called EQ1. Another term for this would be like a notch filter because it's taking a notch out of the frequency spectrum. This one's similar, but it's just kind of a narrower notch. And it gets narrower from there. Low pass is by far the most common. So that's what we're going to focus on today. Since I'm making a bass sound, I'm going to turn it pretty low. Now, resonance is data entry knob F. And what resonance does is creates a little peak right at where the sound is starting to be filtered off. And you can see it really well in the diagram. This is great for as filters are moving, it can create like wah-wah sounds or vowel sounds. As opposed to when it's down. This actually makes it great for a destination point for your LFO because of those cool vowel sounds when the resonance is turned all the way up. But let's talk about the envelope. because this is so confusing to beginners. So I just want to go through it all. The top four data entry knobs control what the filter looks like. You have attack at the beginning, which is how long it takes for the envelope to go up. Then you have decay, which comes right after the attack phase and goes down. And it goes down to a sustain phase, which is set by data entry knob C. And then the last phase is once the trigger is let go, how long it will take for the filter to fully close. For right now, let's just focus on attack and decay. In fact, let's just focus on decay. So I've turned my attack time to 0, my sustain is at 0, and my release time is at 0. Now, right now, the filter is doing absolutely nothing. And it doesn't matter what you turn these, where you set these knobs, it's doing nothing. And that's because you need to set the filter amount. Now, the Electron calls it envelope depth. Many other synths will call it envelope amount. Either way, what you have to understand is that this is bipolar, meaning that it can go positive or negative, and that affects how the envelope affects the sound. Notice that as I turn it up, it does change the sound. So let me explain what's happening there. If we turn our envelope up to, say, 20, or just about, listen to how it sounds. Actually, let me turn the decay time up. The frequency is jumping up by 20 and then returning back down to the frequency where you have it set with data entry knob E at the rate of the decay. So it would be the same as if we were to turn this envelope down to 0, we could do it manually and simply start at, since it was going up by 20, right now we're at 42, we could go up to 62 and press it and go down to 42. Now it's hard to do it exactly, but that's a similar sound to. And likewise, the reason it was starting up there was because our attack time is all the way down, so that made it instantaneous. If we turned our attack to something like this, it will gradually start here, go up, and then go back down. And the amount it goes up depends on this knob. You could have it only go up a little bit, which would be similar to, if we turn this to 0, and likewise, if you set it to a negative value, it would do the same thing. It would just go in the opposite direction. So those tend to be better if you start them up higher, which would be the same as. So that's how envelopes work. If you turn up the sustain, then basically what happens is after it goes up and comes back down, rather than going all the way back down to wherever you set it, the sustain knob will keep it up a little bit. Now the release only comes into play in certain situations, and that will happen if the amp also has a release. Also has a release that's much longer than the release of the filter. So you can hear when I let off the button, the filter will close off before the amp finishes playing the sound. So right now it's sustaining, and you can still hear the sound going even though the filter's closed off. That's because the release time of the filter is shorter than the release time of the amp. Let's turn this into a really funky bass patch. That's a pretty awesome bass sound. On this second filter page, which is a bass filter, and that's bass as meaning fundamental filter, and you can use this to further shape your sound. It has a low slope on a high pass and a low pass filter that you can adjust with these knobs. I'd probably use this just to filter out unwanted harmonics, but you can also do an envelope delay. And then the sample rate reduction is another cool effect that was added with the 1.5 operating system upgrade. There's some cool sounds in there as well. So I hope you found this video helpful and enjoyable. Let me know what you think in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Once again, thanks so much, Perfect Circuit, for making this possible. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.